Kash Patel has taken over as the 9th director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. He's the first person of Indian origin to hold this office. Not surprising for the Trump administration, which has seen the largest number of PIOs, people of Indian origin, in top positions. Kash is a hardcore Trump loyalist, though extremely controversial in the United States. He's been called a conspiracy theorist for his podcasts. But he's got through the Senate with a narrow 51-49 vote. Kash Patel is FBI chief at a time when Khalistani elements have attacked Indian consulates in San Francisco and preached violence against Indian diplomats in the name of freedom of speech. The Biden administration has been sitting on a list of 64 fugitives whom India wants to be extradited from the United States. Now, the FBI, which is the US equivalent of 3 Indian agencies, the Intelligence Bureau, the CBI, and the NIA, is the agency responsible for extraditing these fugitives. So, is Kash Patel going to do as India seeks of the United States, the extradition of all of these bad characters? Is he going to be good for India? Joining me on the News 9 Plus show now, Yashovardhan Azad, former Special Director of the IB, Navneet Rajan Wasan, former DG BPR&D, and in the studio, my colleague, News 9's Executive Editor, Aditya Raj Kaul. Gentlemen, welcome to the News 9 Plus show. Aditya, when is the last time we saw the White House put out a Bollywood movie meme to welcome an incoming FBI director?
Well, it seems that this Trump administration is going to be different in every possible sense of the term. It is going to bring in a lot of color, a lot of direct speech, not mincing any words. And I think this video was already under production for already weeks, and they were waiting for that opportunity to put out this Indian song and this AI generated, Kash Patel in that song as the lead actor.
Kash Patel as Ranveer Singh.
Is Ranveer Singh trolling the Democrats?
Yes.
A Republican trolling the Democrats. But on a serious note, while the Indian left is going tom-tomming and saying that, Indians are celebrating this because he's a Hindu and is of Indian origin, that's not it. The bigger point here, Sandeep, is that the ideology of Kash Patel, his thinking, his viewpoint matches with the Modi government. It matches with India's national interest. And that's the top priority. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because on terrorism, on radicalization, on drug dealers and cartels, absolutely same kind of mindset. I mean, Kash Patel is also someone who came out openly admitting and supporting the Ram temple construction in Ayodhya and lambasting the US media and saying that they were not presenting the right picture to the audience in America. They were not saying that there is a centuries old history of roots of Hinduism in Ayodhya, and they were just mincing their words and talking about the Babri dispute. And finally, the bigger question of extradition. Tahavur Rana has already happened, but now as FBI director, and also Tulsi Gabbard as that second Hindu in the administration as the Director of Intelligence, will have a larger say on how to tackle this menace jointly with India and how this extradition could smoothly happen.
How the extradition could smoothly happen, Aditya? There's a list of 64 fugitives wanted from the United States. And Yashovardhan Azad, there's a long list of 64 bad characters that we want from the United States. It's the maximum number from any country, as the Minister of State for Home has mentioned. Give us an idea why you think the US has been sitting on these extradition requests for so long. Some have been pending for decades.
Well, our record in extradition has not been very good, except for very, very simple cases for which there are no problems. The extradition happens, but even if you look at UK, Nirav Modi, Malia, these are just a no-go. And despite the lower courts doing it, there are appeals, and in fact, somebody is already saying that Rana still has some appeal which we have to still, wait for. Now, in the case of US, there are some very important fugitives. You're right. We need Goldie Brar. I mean, there's one, Harjot Singh. He's also responsible for terror funding and things like that. You see, the first problem is, of course, that many of the things which we submit earlier were not taken very, very seriously. And even if see a very important case of even Tahavur Rana. I mean, he was indicted, he was arraigned for that Danish newspaper. But he was freed in this particular case when he was offering every service to David Headley.
Yes.
And he was a known sympathizer of LET.
Yes.
So it's difficult to, get past these courts with such exacting kind of standards and requirements which they want,
Right.
which may happen even in the cases of these other fugitives we are talking about.
Right.
So that's one very important thing. But what is very encouraging, as you said, is that Kash Patel is a hardliner.
Yes.
He's an absolute. He may be a Trump loyalist, but he also looks at the interest of America, that we don't want any immigrants
Yes.
who are here illegally. We don't want any terrorists. We don't want any propagandists. So that is a welcome sign for us,
Yes.
which means that unlike the Biden ministry, which may take time because they're the
Yes.
bureaucracy also as bad as ours. So they just sit on it.
Yes.
In this particular case, there'll be no delay at all, and the Trump administration and Kash Patel would be able to extradite. My only issue is the courts. Now, how they see our cases, that has to be seen. And let me add in the end, Sandeep, that it is extremely disappointing that despite being a strategic ally,
Yes.
Headley was responsible for the killing of all those, and even foreigners especially,
Yes.
on Indian soil, and who has almost regurgitated everything about the handler, Sajid
Yes.
Mir, ISI, the works, every evidence, and yet we were not able to get him.
We're not able
And
to get
because-
him in, despite several attempts to, ask for his extradition, and he remains there. He's in prison. You believe that we could actually make another attempt to extradite David Headley under the Trump administration?
I'm sure we are trying to do that. You see, because by the time he's released, he'll be 88 years
Yes.
old. Still, of course, we should try at that particular time.
Right.
But before that, it's very important, because the very fact that Tahavvur Rana has been extradited
Yes.
with our evidence, because he was released in the courts over there.
Yes.
Right? He was acquitted in this crime. Then more the reason why David Headley should be there, because David Headley in camera, here when the proceedings take place, and each and every Pakistani handler and Pakistani operatives are with us, at
Yes.
least that dossier will be complete to show to the whole world.
Yes.
And as it is, we have a cast iron case, because Headley has already given that to the US authorities. And because of that only, whatever, sham of a trial or whatever was done
Yes.
in Pakistan.
Yes.
But all in all, I would certainly say it's an encouraging time with Kash Patel there and Trump.
Encouraging time with Kash Patel in the Hoover building, and with Trump, of course, in the White House. Navneet Wasan, do you believe that India could make the case for the extradition of David Headley, as Yashovardhan Azad was saying? I mean, we have tried in the past several times, but he was sentenced by the US courts to a 30-year jail sentence, 35 years. But can we expect for a new extradition proceeding to begin, which the NIA, your former agency, could then follow up with the US government?
See, we must remember one thing, that extradition is a legal process.
Yes.
Basically, this is a process in which the courts decide whether they will extradite somebody or somebody other. And we do have extradition treaty with USA. Now, any case of extradition depends how well we present our case to the US authorities and US courts, because Department of Justice is the the agency to whom we approach. It is not the FBI.
Yes.
We coordinate with DOJ and not with FBI. FBI may be executing agency on behalf of DOJ
Yes.
in USA. But you see, any extradition will depend, as I said earlier, how well I present the evidence convincing the courts in USA.
Yes.
Of course, the case is fought by the FBI and US authorities. How tight, how solid is my evidence produced there?
Yes.
And in case of David Headley, so David Headley could not be extradited. Our extradition proceedings didn't start because he entered into a plea bargaining agreement.
Yes. Yes.
That he shall not be extradited in this case, in this related matter, to India. And it is only after he entered into plea bargaining agreement that he was sentenced there and no extradition proceedings started. We can make an attempt, but you see that attempt will depend on the legal position in USA. What is the legal, the leeway which we have in USA?
Right.
And as you said, a number of extradition requests are pending. See, our difficulty in India is that while making any extradition request, we have to understand law of the country to which we are sending our extradition request.
Yes.
And how well we do it. See, our difficulty is we don't do our homework properly, and we do not come up to the standards which is required by the courts of that country, whether it may be USA or any other country. So what is required is that when I am preparing a dossier, I'm sending an extradition request, I have to do my homework absolutely pakka, so that, as my co-panelist Mr. Azad said, that we can meet the exact standards of those courts.
Absolutely.
That is extremely.
Yes, extremely important indeed, Navneet Rajan, and stands to reason that the government would be doing that, especially in this case. But, Aditya, I want to come over to you now that when Prime Minister Modi visited the White House, there was a list of 10 fugitives that was given to the Trump administration. Do you have any idea which names were on this list?
Well, we are not aware of all the names, but as you said, there are 64 names that have been pending for a very long time. That's a massive, massive list. It does seem that there are a lot of technicalities, and as my co-panelist said, legal hurdles in that entire process. It is the courts ultimately. But as it may be, the courts may be having the final word. But I think the conviction and also the sense of responsibility and the sense of direction that the Trump administration will have against terrorism, against drug cartels, against any illegal immigrants, that will have a larger say on the extraditions that will take place. So the 12 that were handed over this time around by the agencies with their counters there included people like Anmol Bishnoi of the Lawrence Bishnoi gang.
Right.
It included other names also who have been involved in gangland violence, particularly in Punjab, but in other states as well. There are also Goldie Brar, who was involved in the killing of a very prominent singer not so long ago in Punjab as well. And there have been accusations against the government that the government has been hand in gloves with the Lawrence Bishnoi gang to also make matters more clear, to bring in clarity and transparency. The government has brought in these names that we want extradition of these characters. We are not in favor of these gangsters operating either from the US or the Canadian soil.
Right.
And we want some kind of a legal movement on this entire process. And the extradition of Tahawoor Rana, when it actually takes place, will be a huge, huge message, not just for the people in India, but globally against terrorism, particularly in Pakistan, which is now planning to again reignite terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir.
Right, absolutely. A huge message for the world, the extradition of Tahawoor Rana. But, Mr. Azad, I will read out the statement that was read out in the White House when Prime Minister Modi was there, where basically the joint statement called on Pakistan to ensure that its territory is not used to carry out cross-border terror attacks. It named the Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, Jaish, Lashkar-e-Taiba as the foremost threats to peace and stability of India in the neighborhood. Now, this is a very significant statement coming out of the White House. Given the fact that now you have an FBI director who, as Aditya said, is not only pro-India, but he is a pragmatist. He doesn't hold any brief for any terrorist or any drug trafficker based on, freedom of expression. Do you see this as changing this entire dynamic between India and Pakistan as seen through the eyes of the United States?
I do. I think, as Aditya already said, that Tahawoor Rana's extradition is a huge, huge encouragement to this direction which we have taken. And, I saw the second line that's very significant, which you just read out, that they also asked Pakistan to desist from any kind of support to these. And that's why, I think, Sandeep, that this our Mumbai attack case is a test case. And, here is one case where there is a rock solid evidence. Let me also say, what Navneet said to add to his point is that at least now our NIA dossiers are much better.
Yes.
the earlier evidence which you used to, because NIA over the years is doing a good job. And he has got solid dossiers against people. In this Mumbai attack case, people who are the ISI handlers, people who were the trainers, there were two trainers also.
Yes.
It is very important to get them. And to get them, we must persist with trying again to get Headley's here. Let's see what the courts decide in terms of the actual gravity of crime which took place in Indian soil against the testing the strength of that plea bargain which was done, or because he was an asset of the deep state or whatever.
Yes.
Let's see. It's quite possible that some court just might agree to that. And what is very important, and Aditya also mentioned, is the attitude of the government there now under Kash Patel and Trump. Whenever in the courts, when they give statements, definitely it won't be as negative as earlier.
As it was in the past, yes.
Yes, as it was. So I do hope, as you said, that there is a new trend, and I expect something much, much better this time.
Right, absolutely. And Navneet Wasan, the point that you made about the FBI earlier on, the fact is that, of course, it is the implementing authority for extradition, it's executing authority, but could some new evidence come to light? For instance, if the FBI shares new evidence in the Mumbai attacks, 2611 case, could that strengthen our case for extraditing some of these key people like David Headley, for instance? What is the role that the FBI plays? Give us an idea about what exactly the FBI does when it comes to terrorism and counterterrorism efforts in the United States.
See, as you said in the beginning of the show, that FBI is something of Intelligence Bureau, CBI, and NIA built, 3-in-1 agency in USA. So FBI is extremely important for us. Our relations with FBI, because we can exchange information, we can exchange evidence, because it is the FBI which, on behalf of DOJ, gathers evidence on our request and passes on to India for use of evidence in Indian courts, as well as in the courts while having an extradition trial in USA. So the role of FBI is certainly, it cannot be emphasized more. It is extremely important. And with a person like Kash Patel there and the US administration supporting the anti-terrorism cause, supporting India, I'm sure it's going to make a lot of difference. The cases will progress fast because somebody will take interest in USA. They will pass on the evidence. Our request will be taken with much more seriousness as against in the past. And I am hopeful that with the present dispensation in USA and the NIA and other agencies are doing good job, we should see a better times as far as bringing culprits to the book.
Yeah, better times indeed when it comes to bringing culprits to the book, Aditya. You have a point to make on this.
Yeah, definitely. The approach point that Yashovardhanji also mentioned, the mindset change is very important. And I want to go back to what Dr. Jaishankar said at the Munich Security Conference. He said that US, he didn't name US, but he blamed the Western powers of supporting non-democratic actors, non-democratic governments in the global South. What he actually meant was examples of Pakistan and Bangladesh. And he said it's been happening for years and it's happening even now. That means that the US deep state has been continuously supporting Pakistan and this time around Bangladesh as well. But under Trump administration, it's likely that that approach is going to change. If I can take you back to the first, I think first week or first month of the first Trump administration, where he tweeted against Pakistan and he had said that the entire defense arrangement with Pakistan is going to end. By the end of the Trump administration, again things smoothened up between Pakistan and US. But it does seem that right now is not that time where Pakistan will get that long rope again. And things in Bangladesh are going to change as well. And I think not just countries in the Middle East, but US also realizes that when it comes to trade, when it comes to economic cooperation, when it comes to strategic alliances in the global South in South Asia, it's India and no other country in the region.
India and no other country in the region, of course, and the kind of statements that have been coming out of the White House are very heartwarming, Aditya. I can't recall the last time a US president was so pro-India and actually packed his cabinet with so many people of Indian origin and people who believed in the India story. But Yashovardhan Azad, you know, what is the difference really between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0? You know, it's the same president, but he seems to have come this time around with a more focused agenda, with a bigger team which he wants to implement his radical reform. And that's where people like Kash Patel become so important.
In fact, you know, I think the 4-year period when Trump was out of power did him a lot of good, because that's the period when to come back, he sort of is mapped out everything. And you could see that in that period, while he was criticizing Biden on every possible issue, he was also letting out his own views, and you know, which were taking shape in the form of a foreign policy, domestic policy. And as soon as he came, in fact 15 days earlier, his coinage of terms and doge and all these things were coming out furious and fast. So I would say he has a very focused agenda, and in terms of India, he has tremendous hopes of a strategic ally, trade, defense, I mean the works. Intelligence agencies cooperation now will be at a much higher level, much more intense and close. Intelligence sharing will also deepen. And in fact, as Navneet said, FBI also helps us in getting us information like we do, cooperate on various subjects. But this time it's going to be more intense, more focused. So a much better time, I would expect.
Much better time indeed. And Yashovardhan Azad, since you've been actually there, you were the points person as well with the United States for some time. Give us an idea on when you say much more intelligence cooperation. What do you mean by that? Is it more specific intelligence alerts, or generally a positive attitude towards India, and therefore you really want to help the relationship grow stronger through?
The second part is very important, more positive and more hopeful kind of approach, looking towards India and expecting also better things, expecting better cooperation from us. Intelligence cooperation alerts are definitely there.
Yes.
In fact, US intelligence inputs are available to whenever it relates to this particular part of the country, and we do the same. There is a collaboration in training. There is a collaboration in procedures. There is a lot of networking on various here. But this time it's going to be more focused. It's going to be aligned with the interests. You know, there are focused areas which we see, and I think more this time on Pakistan.
Yes.
I think there should be a much better productive. One important thing which Aditya said, and I must mention it. There was always this attitude of, the deep state, or, the CIA, whether it's Bangladesh, whether it's CIA. But this time you saw it that there was a lot of criticism coming about the treatment of Hindus in Bangladesh by many of the senators there. And therefore that shows that things are changing. And that's why I say that it is more the positive attitude of Trump administration, which will give a lot of benefits than any other, institutions, because they remain the same more or less.
Right. Institutions remain the same, but the positive attitude of the Trump administration, of course, is much more important when it comes to the India-US relationship. But Navneet Wasan, in conclusion, do you see any other benefits coming out of a Trump-Kash combo at the White House for India when it comes to national security and terrorism?
See, one very, very important aspect which we must remember, with Trump being there in the seat and Kash Patel as FBI chief, one of the most important thing which I think is going to happen is the speed with which they will share the intelligence and collect evidence and transfer it to India.
Yes.
The speed is the essence of any criminal trial. Because generally we have suffered because the either intelligence is shared after a lag of time, or the evidence is collected with very, very, lackadaisical approach. And by the time we get evidence, and we really can't use it. So it's the speed with which we exchange the information and the evidences, which is going to be extremely important for both countries.
Right. Speed is going to be key to the relationship between the two countries, and Kash Patel might just be the man who could make that happen. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and Aditya, for joining us here on News 9 Plus show. NASA has said there are chances a newly discovered asteroid could collide with Earth in December 2032. That's just 7 years from now. Asteroid 2024 YR4 was discovered on the 27th of December last year. This asteroid has a diameter of 55 meters. It's roughly the size of the meteorite which crashed into Tunguska in Russia in 1908. The asteroid initially had a 1% probability of impact. NASA recently increased these figures to 2.3%. Joining me now from Washington, D.C. is Dr. Amitabh Ghosh, planetary geologist who's worked with NASA on the Mars mission. Dr. Ghosh, welcome to the News 9 Plus show.
It's a pleasure.
Dr. Ghosh, is asteroid 2024 YR4 going to collide with Earth?
So, if you look through the backstory, there are multiple observations which happened. And so we are in this process of assessing that what is going to happen. So there has been a ground-based observation. There has been some observations of South Africa. And then in March, there will be observation by the James Webb Telescope. So all this will refine the models. So the probability being put out, I would say, this is a very tentative thing of an event which is going to happen long afterwards. And there are it's a very tough observation for an asteroid. It's a very tiny body. So it has to be a specific time of day, etc. So I wouldn't be very worried, but I would just watch whatever observation comes out as the trajectory is defined. In the same story, you will see that there's also a possibility this asteroid will hit our moon, which is a lower possibility. So the bottom line is it's not really frozen yet. It's an assessing mode.
Interesting. We still need to study the course and trajectory of this asteroid. So where does this particular asteroid 2024 feature on the Torino scale, which tracks the hazardous nature of space objects and how impactful they could be to Earth? And tell us why Mumbai, Dhaka and Kolkata are in the danger zone.
Yes. So the Torino scale was interesting. It was just being framed while I was graduating on my PhD. So it measures the hazard and the destruction it will cause. So here there has been some big news that certain cities are more prone to it. I think that is probably not the context. The context is if it were to hit these population centers, which is Kolkata, Dhaka, Bombay, Lagos, etc., the damage will be maximum. But the asteroid doesn't know where it is about to hit. The asteroid will hit as a matter of probability. And if 70% or 75% of the Earth is oceans, there's greater likelihood that it will hit the oceans. And then you will have, you might have a tsunami because the water is displaced, etc. But if it hits the population centers, then there will be massive damage. So what reminds me is in, I think, 1908, there was a asteroid impact in a Siberian forest, and the entire forest burnt down. So imagine if that hit Moscow or London, there'll be huge casualties, right? But I think that probability is even fainter. If you think of the population centers, how many cities there are, probably it is less than 0.5% of the area of the Earth, if not even lower. So I don't think if you sum that possibility of 2.9% that it will hit, and then 0.5% that will hit a population center, then if you multiply the probability is very, very low.
So, Dr. Ghosh, as I understand it, what you're saying is that the chances of this asteroid hitting the oceans are far greater than it hitting a city, because the oceans make up 71% of the water surface, the Earth's surface rather, of the planet.
Yes, because the asteroid doesn't know where to hit, right? It will just hit anywhere on Earth. And most of Earth, fortunately or unfortunately, is oceans. So that is where it's most likely going to hit.
Well, that's a relief. The chance that it could just be a water burst and not, as we fear, a deep impact, that Armageddon meets Deep Impact, a Hollywood movie from the 1990s. But what would the planetary geologists be looking for when, as you mentioned, the James Webb telescopes are going to be swinging towards this particular asteroid a few months from now?
See, let's make it very simple. Say you're looking at a car. So you're looking at the position at multiple times. So maybe 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And from that, you're trying to see the velocity as well as the direction. And because, say, you have a side profile view or a straight view, so say if it's going away from you, your the measurement that you make is more of an error bar, has a more of an error bar. If it is like this, but still it will have an error bar. So that is what the telescopes are trying to do, trying to find the vector velocity and direction. And from that, they'll try to see whether the orbit of that asteroid is with the orbit of Earth. It clashes with the orbit of Earth. So it's nothing very intense. We try to estimate all the time. If you have a cricket ball coming at you, your eye is trying to estimate what is the velocity and direction. And then based on that, you move towards the ball to catch the ball, whatever. So we do it as a human. Here, it's just maybe we will have bigger telescopes looking at it, just trying to get a thing of the same problem.
Like a cricket ball hurtling at you, a good analogy there, works for the subcontinent. But Dr. Ghosh, meteorites have changed life on Earth. The meteorite that hit the Earth 60 million years ago wiped out dinosaurs and saw the rise of mammals. Explain to us how this could actually produce some kind of world-altering event.
So that is fascinating, what you just said. So I'm like miles away from the Smithsonian Museum. And if you go into their exhibits, which are like housed in the warehouse, there's a rock where you see you have dinosaurs below that layer and no dinosaurs above that layer. And then you have a element which is found in meteorites, which is iridium, on the layer when this hit. So it's fascinating. Probably what happened is it hit the Earth so hard, and then there was a lot of dust, and that hit the sun from Earth, and that caused a huge. So imagine when we have this solar eclipse, even those few minutes, the life on Earth, like birds, etc., get a wrong impression. Imagine if it was, if the sun was not visible for a few months, then what will happen to the whole food cycle, the trees, the animals? So it was a very confusing time. And of course, there was dust in the atmosphere. You don't know how much dust. So that caused the entire species to gradually die out. But, human life on Earth is limited. The life of our sun is 4 billion years. Much before that, the sun is going to, become very, very hot before it dies. And then the Earth at some point will vaporize and melt and become plasma. So that is what we are ultimately in this equation. At some point, the Earth will not survive. So that is far, far away. That's probably a billion years away. But the near future, of course, I think there's something to watch. But one interesting thing is if something was to really hit, we don't have a foolproof technology to protect Earth.
Dr. Ghosh, despite the thousands of nuclear weapons and rockets and missiles on Earth, it's interesting that we still don't have the technology to destroy something like a meteorite hurtling towards Earth, something that should have been the focus of possibly every nation on Earth, survival of the planet.
So this is very, very true what you're saying. So why it is unrealistic? Say someone threw a rock at you, right? And then you take something to disintegrate the rock. So because of the laws of physics, the rock will break up but still come towards you because the momentum has to be conserved, by the law of conservation of momentum. So the rock will still come at you. So if you could have this asteroid and it broke up, you had this nuclear device, it will still come at you. And it's also not completely clear if it was a very huge asteroid, how would you break up the interior, right? You could have nuclear devices on top, but then would it disintegrate the inside? Nobody knows. And so it's not what NASA did. There was a mission called DART. So they crashed a spacecraft into a small asteroid, and they could just change the trajectory a tiny bit, and that was sufficient to create a large change in the trajectory. So something like that could be tested, but they have done it for just one asteroid. You have to be timely, you have to track it, you have to have that spacecraft ready. So there is a significant amount of logistics involved. So there is no ready plan that I think we have in our back pocket that can just be unleashed.
I'm just reminded of what Elon Musk has been saying recently, that we need to move to other planets to prevent life from being wiped out by a cataclysmic event, and why we need to get to Mars. Do you think that that is actually going to fuel a new set of scientists and technologists who are going to actually argue Musk's case to go to Mars?
So I think this is I think Elon Musk likes this hypothesis of going to Mars. I think where it doesn't add up to now is Mars is very far away. The moon is 3 days away. Mars is 7 months away. Okay, so to have the logistics in place to do this mission and think of emergencies and do a human mission, do large-scale movement of humans, and then some of it has been figured out. For example, NASA has figured out to make oxygen on Mars. But you have to have extractable water at a reasonable cost for human use. Otherwise, you cannot keep carrying water and oxygen. And then what are you going to do? Are you going to do this for 7 billion people? So there's a logistics problem. So, and then who said that the Mars is more hospitable? You have to, it's not hospitable, right? I mean, for this large scale movement. So for the human race, and then what happens when the sun dies? Then how do you escape this solar system? So you have to go to some other interstellar space. But to get to the nearest star is 4 light years away. To give you a perspective, Voyager was launched in 76, and in 50 years, it has traveled less than 1 light day. And so you have to travel 4 light years. So imagine how far you have to go to the nearest star. And even then, you don't know whether there is a planet, a habitable planet around that star, which is Alpha Centauri. So I don't, there's too much of a fairy tale, the settling on Mars scenario and escaping Earth.
Fairy tale or science fiction which could become reality, or science fact, who knows? But for now, we need to keep our fingers crossed, keep studying 2024 YR4 as it hurtles towards Earth. Thank you very much, Dr. Ghosh, for that absolutely fascinating discussion.